What is a professional entrepreneur?
Okay.
Who is a professional entrepreneur?
Well, it's a interesting question. I could see significant commonalities uh, between starting something of my own and being part of a setup while being an entrepreneur.
But people have this FOMO that he's doing something, I also need to do something.
By being part of the solution, by getting people involved in bringing that particular change is so very important.
And with this, we come to the last segment of our podcast, which is the new segment we've introduced this season, a high five. Namaste, I'm Shubhi Mathur, and I welcome you all to season 2 of Let Us Talk. Aren't we all at some point smitten by the entrepreneurial bug? We want to be our own boss, build our own company, have the flexibility to work, and at the same time, make big money. But is it only entrepreneurship which gives us this joy? Doesn't a professional entrepreneur get the same kick, same joy? Professional entrepreneur? What is that? Yes, you heard it right. Professional entrepreneur. Let us hear about it from Shekhar Mishra, a dynamic professional entrepreneur with more than 2 decades of experience in banking, fintech, consumer tech, and green mobility. He's been a co founder of a setup in the year 2005, a year when the startup culture was still emerging in our country. Shekhar is currently heading Hero MotoCorp strategy into green mobility, and he identifies himself as a professional entrepreneur. So let us hear from Shekhar. Welcome, Shekhar. Welcome on Let Us Talk. A pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Shubhi. Thank you for having me on your show. It's a pleasure to be here. Professional entrepreneur. I mean, it's an interesting term as it
Yeah, I've
sounds.
never heard about it. And Shekhar, when we met and I was going through your LinkedIn, the first line says professional entrepreneur. And I was like, has he been an entrepreneur throughout his life? Or he's been the corporate job? Or he's married the two? What is it?
No, so it's actually a very interesting term as we think about it, right? At somewhere during our long journey, professional one, many of us come across situation where we believe that okay, start something new,
Yeah.
start something, build it at scale, create values while doing it,
Yeah.
right? So that's primarily what most people assume entrepreneurship to be. I mean, at the outset, entrepreneurship is taking the risk of starting something new,
Yeah.
and in the process try to create significant impact
Yes.
at scale while
Yeah.
doing it, right?
Yeah.
uh, you know Actually, when I started my entrepreneurship journey
So,
back.
which journey is it which you've said that in 2005,
Yeah.
when the startup had not evolved in the country, what startup did you like? What did you found?
Okay, and so I was a co-founder back then. I jointly, along with another Indian-born American, entrepreneur, started a company in IPR advisory.
Okay.
This back then was a new term, emerging term. A lot of companies in the Silicon Valley, they were getting funded, and the first thing that they would do after getting funding was to secure their patents to ensure that the value is not eroded, or the big companies don't broach into their discoveries and whatnot. So our company at that time would work with those new founded startups or newly funded startups, in helping them secure their IPs so that the value could be kept within the firm. And in doing so, we would actually make tons of money.
Yeah.
So that was the idea back then. So pretty interesting one for that time, where entrepreneurship in the country was still coming up.
Yes.
Right. I could think of only a few names back then. Most of the unicorns that you hear about today, they were not even formed, or most of the founders possibly were in their schools. So that was then. Immediate to that, when I made a move to a bank, which was just founded, it was Yes Bank. Being part of the CEO's office back then, setting the bank
So
from
you
all
could
the
carry the
angles.
same skills of your entrepreneurship to the bank. It was, yeah, working like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so when I started in 2005, it was literally putting the shutter up
Yeah.
to taking the business proposals to the clients' offices. And these clients could range from, as I said, newly funded startups to the likes of Texas Instruments. And just imagine, you are someone who's very minuscule to those large companies, trying to make a mark, trying to actually solve for a problem statement that exists, but potentially can be done by several other companies as well. So your competition set at that point in time was very diverse, and the naivety that you had starting up also helped you, give you the kind of confidence that you needed at that point in time.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So, Shekhar, you call yourself a professional entrepreneur. My first question in today's episode is, what is a professional entrepreneur?
Okay.
Who is a professional entrepreneur?
Well, it's a interesting question. In fact, it is an interesting term per se.
Yeah.
Very simplistically, I would like to define professional entrepreneur is the sum of professional and entrepreneur. Okay. So my understanding, of the entrepreneurship is for someone who starts something new.
Yeah.
Um, may
An
not be
interesting idea,
an
something
interesting
new.
idea,
Yeah.
wanting to make it big,
Yes.
and takes the financial risk
Yeah.
associated with it.
And creates an impact.
Creates an impact,
Yeah.
right? But it is more than that. The
Much
entrepreneurship, as
more.
we
The
know,
journey is much more than these.
it's the grind,
Yeah.
it's the first
The
principle
non
thinking.
tangible, I think, is more. Yeah.
Exactly. And many a times when some of us do not plunge
Yeah.
into starting something new or take the 100% of the financial risk associated with it because of whatever reasons, situations that we have, we still have a choice. The entrepreneurship in many way is a way of life,
Yeah.
right? It's about, as I said, as I was saying, first principle thinking and a questioning the status quo in a manner that you want to solve for it.
Yeah.
Many a times we meet people around us who keep on questioning why things are the way things are without ever having an intent or an ability to impact.
Impact or change it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as professionals, when we come across situations, do we actually take a step back and think, can we do it better?
Yeah.
How can we do it better?
Or how can we make it better?
How
Yeah.
can we make it better? How can we inspire people to make it better? Because that's whenever you are in a particular situation where whether you are being led or you are leading a team, you always have a choice to just follow the process or potentially make an impact to that process to make it better, thereby creating value. I believe professional entrepreneurship in very short form is practicing the entrepreneurship while being professionally occupied
Yeah.
and potentially not starting a new business on its own, but making that particular impact while being at the job.
This is a very interesting point which you've mentioned, that professional entrepreneurship, that while being in the organization, you can create a same impact. See, now not all entrepreneurs are successful and not all of them are making big money. And we only see the positive side of it, the
Yes,
greener side of it. And while being in an organization, you can add the same value to yourself as well as to the organization and create a big impact. But people have this FOMO that he's doing something, I also need to do something. So sometimes, do you think it's that FOMO or that inspiration which pushes people ki the professional entrepreneur in them dilutes, or they don't even realize that they can add value?
A very interesting point you're making is, Shubhi. See, I believe the factor that just drives people looking at other success is also potentially the reason mankind has been this successful, right? If we had not chased,
Inspiration. That's inspiration. Yeah.
but at the same time, we always, as professionals, we always have a choice, right? And see, if somebody wants to start something new, by all means, think through, make the plunge, factor in the risk involved, and go ahead and do it when you believe it's the right time. And possibly, as many would say, right time is as of yesterday. Right time is the time that you have not started.
Yeah, just
but
take the first
but
step,
but
we
but
say.
we always have a choice to be happy about our current situation or not. If by looking at others we feel that the startup bug or the entrepreneur bug is still making us uncomfortable and we need to start something, go ahead and do it. But till such time you do it, or for those who don't want to do it or don't have the risk appetite to do it, there's always a choice. You can go ahead and contribute 100% or 101% of what you are creating an impact on an everyday basis. I mean, that I believe no one should devoid themselves or their organizations of what they can do, the kind of impact that they can create. And, it also comes back.
Yeah.
There is a sense of fulfillment that you get while making that particular change and while impacting those lives, while creating that particular impact on the organization. And akin to entrepreneurship, I believe this particular impact is also extremely satisfying.
It's a very fresh perspective, Shekhar, what you're sharing with us. Because, at this point and in this season, especially when we are talking about midlife, people are having this dilemma कि यार अब आगे क्या इसी में ही करना है, because as you climb up the ladder, the number of jobs reduce. Yeah, you can't switch so easily. So something in the back of the mind does haunt people. And it's a very fresh perspective which we are going to talk on, which we are talking on, ki professional entrepreneurship. As professionals, you've been an entrepreneur throughout. We forget that, like you said, you were associated with Yes Bank, and since the beginning, it was as good as working with a startup. You were involved in the same challenges, same situation. You were working with a co-founder. So it is a professional entrepreneur journey, which we all fail to recognize.
No, I would say few of us have been lucky enough to actually practice it.
Yeah.
And practice it early in the career. But the more I think about it, I realize it is always a choice.
Yeah.
It's a very conscious choice that we make. While being in a professional setup, if we come across a particular situation and decide, oh, why is this thing done this particular way? Oh, because there is a set of procedure which were written
ऐसा
5
ही
years
होता
back.
है, yeah.
There is a process manual that people refer to and say, okay. See, it is okay if you are in banking and you have to follow RBI guidelines because until those
That is the
guidelines are
norm,
changed,
yeah.
that's the status quo. But in most other corporate setup, you can always question the way things are being done to make it more effective, make it more impactful, shorten the turnaround. Several ways you can actually practice professional entrepreneurship, and I believe all of us consciously make a choice to do or avoid.
Yeah.
Because
चल रहा है, चलने दो.
sometimes it's
Yeah.
okay to get the easy way
Yeah.
out, right? It is not my problem because I just followed the process. It's the outcome. In most cases, it is the outcome that matters. Also the process, but the outcome matters more than the process. And that's a very personal belief that I have.
So, Shekhar, now as we are getting deeper in this conversation, you have worked with Ola, you have worked with Yes Bank, and now with Hero. And in their startups phase, you were associated with them. So, what made you call yourself a professional entrepreneur? That is, the whole conversation today will revolve around it, so that, our audience understands what is this. They feel good about it. They share this podcast with all their colleagues, and I hope they subscribe to the channel. Yeah.
No, sure. An important question, Shubhi. All the three companies primarily that I work for, I was fortunate enough to be part, of their initial growth journey.
Yeah.
And working very closely with the founders/promoters. Yes Bank, when I joined, it was, see, banking doesn't happen every day. It's not every day in the country that a new bank gets
bank
created.
opens,
And
yeah.
that too back then.
This was
I believe
2007, 6?
2005 they had
5.
gotten
Yeah.
the license. 2000 they had started, and I joined them in 2006. So at that time we were trying to build the organization. In fact, I would say Rana was trying to build the organization along with the co-founder Mr. Ashok Kapoor. Uh, Actually wanted to start a retail bank, but we didn't have the wherewithal. Or I believe we were expert, the management at that point in time, very few.
You were associated with Yes Bank as what? You were in the strategy
Yeah.
or?
I was in
Yeah.
the corporate development and strategy team,
Okay.
which was led by the CEO.
Okay.
And basically, this team would work on specific projects. Whatever projects would be important for the organization at that point in time, this team will just get into it, try to understand from grounds up how is it done, what needs to be done, what is the need of the hour, what is the challenge, how we can do it differently, how can we do it in a less budget and a shorter span of
Yeah.
time. I believe TAT, turnaround time, was the favorite subject that our CEO had at that point in time. So being part of a banking setup, it was extremely important at that point in time to create, a team which is driven enough, to take up this particular challenge. And I would say, a little, we were working on things which are extremely important to the bank at that point
Yeah.
in time. I mean, it's
Strategy
not,
is
as I
the
said,
crux
yeah.
foundation. Yeah.
And as I said, it's not that every day a bank gets licensed in the country.
True.
I mean, very
True.
well regulated. Uh, so many things was important at that point in time to be done concurrently, that literally, most of us would find it hard to remember the date.
Yeah.
Only when it was a deadline that we would. But the kind of commitment that it warranted people, and luckily we were young enough at that time, and we had co-founders who were driven enough to show us the path. It wasn't important whether you had the prior work experience which was relevant to banking or not. The rigor to actually make things work, the fact that you could have worked in different industries, created an impact respectively, but you had the rigor to get things done, and whatever it takes.
And the rigor is same like to an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And I think that's why you call yourself a professional entrepreneur, because that rigor is there, that commitment, dedication you must have shown that time is the same what any other entrepreneur
Yeah,
goes through.
and I would say, we were fortunate enough to work alongside co-founders,
Yeah.
founders, whose energy also passed
Rubs
on to
on
us.
you. Yeah.
It was so infectious, the energy, that, at no point in time, while being in office till 12 o'clock in the night or 2 o'clock in the morning, you never felt that you were in a place where you did not belong.
Yeah.
It was like you were building something, you were building bricks, which would actually lay the foundation of an organization which was yours.
Yeah.
So it actually blurred the distinction between personal and professional life. And that's what I believe in many ways, that is true for most entrepreneurs. Life is work, work is
Yeah.
life.
The switch
And
on
that,
mode is on throughout.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, absolutely. And so, in a nutshell, I would say, having started something prior to Yes Bank, being a co-founder, and worked as professional in Yes Bank when it was being set up,
Yeah.
I could see significant commonalities uh, between starting something of my own and being part of a setup while being an entrepreneur. I mean, that inculcated this particular, I would say, attitude in me of being an entrepreneur
While
while being a
being in a,
professional.
yeah.
So, and all thanks to the co-founders back then, they created a working culture, at least amongst the first few batches of people who came in, who, in my view, they all of them are entrepreneurs.
Yeah. That ecosystem has to be there, that a professional or a senior employee feels like an entrepreneur, I think that's an amazing work culture being set up by them.
Yep.
And Shekhar, you were also with Ola. So Ola is something very new, exciting. And I remember that time, it was one of those startups where everybody wanted to work. So how was it working with Ola? And did you have the same sense of ownership like how you felt at Yes Bank? That you felt like an entrepreneur there almost. How was it working at Ola also?
Well, Ola has been in the news for a lot of reasons. I mean, more progressive.
Yeah.
Possibly one of the first one to question the status quo, um, as far as mobility is concerned. And it was interesting. I would say, my 2 years at Ola working alongside Bhavish, it was a very interesting journey. In fact, as I was mentioning, right, if the banking as a career was an entrepreneurial career in a manner of sorts, and I had thought that I had seen a lot.
Yeah.
But the experience of working in I would say purebred tech startup like Ola opened up different kinds of challenges.
Yeah.
Something that I thought I was, but it took me a while to acclimatize to. You know, I'll give you an example. We were working on a particular transaction in which we were expected to raise financing to set up electric vehicle factory. Now I would walk up to Bhavesh and we'll chat about how we need to plan it, how what time the money comes in, what are the expectations of the financials we need to manage, and what do we have to manage that, and how to build a story around it. And he would be like, okay, I want it as of yesterday. And having worked in bank, you understand there
Yeah.
are
The
processes that
deadline.
get followed. There are risk committees and all those things. Sometimes I would be, sort of disappointed. And I would question myself whether I'm the right man for the job. But, what did happen was we together created a narrative which was backed with data, facts, all the supporting that became a story that people were ready to buy. And it
How
was,
did you arrive on this narrative?
yeah.
How
So,
did you come? How did you both, come on this?
yeah, see, he understands investors' mindset
Yeah.
very well, and I understood banking.
So you
so,
married the
so,
two.
so marriage of the two actually
Yeah.
helped us create the right mix, which was credible enough, for people to not only just underwrite. And ours back then, I still vividly remember $100 million equivalent financing was done in a record time, underwritten by Bank of Baroda, and then later on participated by several other banks. I got a call the day it was announced. I got a call from an MNC banker sitting out of Singapore that how did you guys pull it through
Yeah.
at such a fine pricing on such kind of terms? But it did happen. So one thing that you realize, working for startups or working in startup or starting something of your own, wherever you are, is that luck only comes to those who give it a
Work
try.
hard. Yeah.
So luck is more like a metamorphosis of hard work combined,
I agree. I
happening at a
totally
certain
agree
point
to
in
it.
time, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of rationale potentially comes in the way of your luck and just stops you from doing what you should be doing. We should consciously avoid that.
Yeah. So, Shekhar, coming back to where we started, was that you are a person who's worked in diverse industries and who's worked with startups. And they gave you the same kind of experience, the joy which an entrepreneur gets. And that's why you call yourself as professional entrepreneur. So, do you think the same sense of ownership is there while you are working in the organization? Like how the entrepreneur has that responsibility, that owners, that team building thing, that mental load. Do you think you shared that with him?
Well, yes and no.
Yeah.
I don't think a entrepreneur who's solely or together with the co-founders responsible for the lights to go on, or not. 100% responsible for the respective careers. The span of that particular responsibility is huge. But at the same time, what did help me, especially in my case, was all these organizations that I have been fortunate enough to be part of were growing and building something new. And they wanted to do things in a manner that creates a disproportionate value.
Yeah, so you have been lucky, or was it a conscious move? Yes Bank, Ola, and Hero, you are getting the same entrepreneurship experience within the organization. So, are these conscious moves, or how did it happen?
No, sure. So, see, I would say at all points in time, I would say I'm fortunate enough. But, these moves did, fall in the overall purview of what I wanted at different points in time, right? When I vividly remember when a call came from Hero Group to join them in helping set up this electric mobility business. At that time, I was thinking, oh, hero.
Yeah, it's a giant.
It's a
And this is
giant,
giving
yeah.
you this
And I
opportunity.
and I
Yeah.
still remember, if you can, just go ahead and check my LinkedIn post at that point in time. I wrote, "When elephants move."
So, Hero was again a place where you could use the professional entrepreneurial skills. How was it?
Oh, well, I would say, how is it? It's an interesting place, as I was mentioning, Shobhi. Undoubtedly, this particular brand has been the leading brand
Since so many decades.
in since so many decades. And I take a lot of pride in calling myself Indian. So when the journey of Hero separating from Honda started, a lot of people, I was in banking then, a lot of people were very skeptical on how the promoters or the founders or the management will pull it through. But after having seen that particular successful separation, led by none other than our existing chairman, Dr. Pawan Manjal, it created an indelible remark on the experience that I, from a distance, had. So when the opportunity came to essentially be part of this particular setup, being part of a vision that he has of being the future of mobility, creating something in the green mobility, creating impact to so many lives, not just currently, but green mobility is also a promise to our future self. In being able to every day do something which contributes to a better future for our future generation. So it was, as far as the mandate was concerned, it was compelling enough for me, who's always been a Mumbaiker, to pack up our bags along with families, and move to NCR. This is my first stint in NCR, and I must say I'm thoroughly enjoying it.
Yeah.
What is also very important, at least for me, was that while I was a startup founder, joined as different companies in various stage of their startup journey.
Yeah.
Right now, I am in a space where I could pass on that particular learning and ways of working to not just my team, but also my colleagues. And the founder, the promoter, has, empowered the team to be able to set a different culture altogether.
Yeah.
The journey has been interesting, but it is far from over. It's a way of life that we are trying to create within EMBU Vida, on approaching the problem statement from a different way. Uh, we are focusing more on what the consumers of today want, how we can make ourselves or our offerings more relevant to that particular consumer, and in doing so, utilize the full muscle power or the strength of hero as a brand, while creating then significant value for our stakeholders. So every day is a new day.
Yeah. Every day comes with a new challenge also.
Most certainly so, and the challenges comes from both within organization and outside, and it's fun. At the outset, what I could say is, see, everybody wants to support.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to be part of that particular journey, but people have their own perceptions of what is the right thing to be done at that point in time. I believe it's the constant guidance of the founder, coupled with some of us who have had, let's say, some of us who have had an entrepreneurship bug, or been an entrepreneur, or created organizations, created impact in organizations that we work for, whether within Hero MotoCorp or from outside. We together have a responsibility to carry out this particular culture within the larger setup that we are.
And it is giving you the same platform, same experience, pleasure, cake, joy of being an entrepreneur. You are, going through the same struggles and everything.
No, sure. See, as I was mentioning, Subhi, early on, is that it's a very conscious choice.
Yeah.
Right? Being any particular situation, let's say, hypothetically, one particular situation, I have a choice. When I feel that something is not happening the way it should happen, I can consciously allow it to happen the way it is happening.
Yeah.
In that particular case, there is a spot that I have created on my heart that, okay, I consciously allowed something which should not have happened the way it was. Or I have a choice to stop it and ask them to make it happen differently. Or I have a choice to become part of the solution in a manner that the change is being brought about the person who are responsible, and I become a facilitator. See, many a times we find ourselves in the first two brackets. Either we allow it to happen because we are in too much hurry.
Yeah.
We just don't have the
खत्म
patience.
करना है.
खत्म करना है, सामने वाले ने मतलब अभी इसमें हाथ डालूंगा तो टाइम लगेगा, मेरा काम डिले होगा. Or I want to road roll because I am in a position and I can road roll. I would not do it this way. I will bring about this. But that doesn't create a lasting impact. By being part of the solution, by getting people involved in bringing that particular change is so very important. Because you're not going to be omnipresent. And it is not your responsibility to be omnipresent.
Yeah.
See, this is what I'm talking about when I talk about professional entrepreneurship. It is about how professionals bring that entrepreneur's zeal and the energy into solving a problem statement in which the problem is not only entrepreneurs, it is everyone's problem. To be able to showcase everyone that, oh, there is a better way. And in that better way, the others still have a role to play. It's not, you're not talking about, full tranche replacement. You are talking about doing the things in a better way, changing the ways of working. So, yeah, I believe, there is lots, every day is a learning, and, I have been, all I can say is that, I have been a student, and I would still like to be a student throughout. I'm learning from my juniors, I'm learning from my peers, I'm learning from my, subordinates, everyone.
So, Shekhar, how did you coin this term, professional entrepreneur? Is it your own coinage, or how was it? Is it your journey over the years? What made you think and that what you are? Like, at this point of life, all of us want to add a new purpose. We all want to escalate ourselves or do something more. So, how and when did you attach this professional entrepreneur title to your name?
So, again, I think it was a few years back. So what do you do when you're not doing much, right? I think about topics, maybe related to life. I think about topics related to industries. I think about topics which are related to the industry that I'm working in, or potentially industry of my interest. So, when I believe there was a time when I wanted to start up something of my own.
Okay.
This, and being a fintech, if I can dare call myself an expert, but a fintech guy and, an automobile enthusiast. And these were the areas where I could think of parking solution, Park Plus bana de. Later on, Park Plus came and I was like, oh, ye mera idea chura hai. So,
It so happens when you're
yeah,
working on something
of
and
course.
suddenly you'll see everybody around you working
Yeah.
on that.
But the fact is, most ideas, they just remain on the shelf.
Yeah.
I made at that point in time, I was in discussion with a few investors who were ready to put in money, and we were thinking about being in Bombay, right? BKC एरिया में हमारे लोग होने चाहिए पार्किंग के लिए अंधेरी में होने चाहिए कहाँ होने चाहिए so and we were very close to a funding round. There were certain personal development that happened at the time, and that delayed my
Execution.
execution. And it got me thinking that so far things have not been too bad. And the kind of thrill that I have had working in the setup that I have been part of, obviously continued through Ola and now at Vida. There's lots that still happening that you want to happen. Possibly, I am best suited for that. And, even if I were to actually take that particular plunge somewhere in the near term, it will be a conscious plunge.
Yeah.
It will not be a plunge that, oh, because I did not do it,
That
I need
FOMO
to
is
delay.
not there.
Yeah. I mean, totally. See, we have a conscious choice to be happy. That doesn't mean satisfied. You can continue to be unsatisfied in a manner that you want more. You want more every day from yourself, from your life, from the company that you are working for, in the role that you are in, from your peers, from your juniors, from your batchmates. But you can be happy, right?
Yeah. Contentment and growth can come hand in hand, can go hand in hand.
Totally. I mean, it was a revelation for me. I'm a very dissatisfied soul otherwise, always wanting something more and more and more. But it just came as a revelation, and I started actually thinking more towards it. And the more that I thought, I realized that it's good. It's great.
And it is such a positive aspect. I don't know, have you ever thought about it? People say, oh, I'm a failed entrepreneur, and they share their learnings, they share their experience. But a professional entrepreneur, by this, not only you are adding and, building on your skills, but you have given such a new perspective to the viewers that, being in the organization doesn't mean that you're not an entrepreneur. You are doing the same set of skills, and it is such a positive way of looking at things and at the same time working on yourself.
No, totally. I mean, I'm happy to, and if need be, happy to connect with any of your viewers as well to share any further. But I totally agree with what you're saying is that it's a very conscious effort.
Yeah.
That you can actually think about it. Most of us in our professional journey may have come across situations where we feel, oh, our friends are starting something which got funded $100 million, right? Oh, the life feels so great, and
It
suddenly
looks so rosy, glamorous,
and suddenly
wow.
not so great, right?
Yeah.
It's said, na, ki, the worst thing about failing in an exam is that your best friend becomes the topper, right? So many a time this FOMO actually gets created. But I sincerely believe if someone has to go ahead and make an impact and do something, they can as well do it professionally. And if you were to start something on your own, by all means do it, but don't do it because others are doing it.
True.
Right.
And that is the objective of our today's conversation. Yes, don't do it because others are doing it. मैंने नहीं करा, try तो करना चाहिए था.
No, because
Try
because
it,
the challenges that
yeah.
comes alongside, you will be questioned.
Yeah.
You will be forced to question your motive time and again as an entrepreneur, as a person solely responsible for that particular business and responsible for 100 people if they're working for you. Every day is their life, their career, their aspirations. Forget, finances, legal, admin, all sorts of responsibilities combined. You are taking up a lot. So you better be clear that
Yeah.
you want to do
What
it.
you want, you
Yeah.
should be. So, thanks, Shekhar, for sharing this fresh perspective with us. And with this, we come to the last segment of our podcast, which is the new segment we've introduced this season, a high five.
Okay.
So, here I take one recommendation from you on 5 different things. So, first recommendation is any book recommendation.
Hmm. The one that comes to my mind, and I read it very early on, is a book called Fountainhead.
Ah,
It's by Ayn Rand.
yes. It was way back in 2000
Yeah,
or,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I believe it was in middle of my college days back then. I was extremely, influenced by the, protagonist Howard Rourke.
Yeah.
And to certain extent, when he makes certain choices, it hits to your bone that
Yeah.
why the hell he's making those choices. But the kind of integrity, individual integrity that he demonstrated, and Ayn Rand took the best out of that particular character. I believe it has also impacted me later on in my life. Obviously, things that one given a particular situation, all of us have a choice.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
you cannot control what happens to you, but you can always control your reaction.
Yeah.
And it's said so many times, but I believe I get to practice it more often than not. So yeah.
One movie recommendation.
Oh, it's actually a different one. There's a beautiful movie called Rocket Singh,
Ah,
Salesman of the Year.
Ranbir
Yeah,
Kapoor
Ranbir
is there.
Kapoor has played
Yes.
a role, and I don't remember too many movies,
Yeah.
but that is one movie, and I remember a few scenes very vividly. Like when he started something differently of
Yeah.
his own,
Yes.
uh, while he was let's say, a professional in the earlier company, the expectation was that he will not be able to make it.
Yeah.
And the last line that he says, possibly, is like, you work with people, you work for people, and so long as you have people in your mind while creating a solution to a problem, you're good enough. And you're putting sincere efforts to solve it. And in many cases, I believe the thing around entrepreneurship is we are trying to genuinely solve a problem statement that exists. And most of that, warrants engagement with people. And so, yeah,
Yeah, and that
this,
movie resonates so well,
yeah,
especially with people in sales.
yeah.
Yeah. So, Shekhar, another thing which we want to know, the another one of the high five recommendation is one habit which has helped you to balance your personal and professional life.
One important thing that I can bring to mind is meeting your commitments. I mean, meeting your commitments consciously. So, whether it is a personal commitment or a professional commitment,
Yeah.
you know, make commitment consciously. But once
Yeah.
you have made it, try to meet
Meet
it.
it. Yes.
And that has created an environment in which you are able to meet expectations.
Yeah.
Uh, More so your own expectation that when you make a commitment, you make it happen. So I think this has
Yeah, we
consciously,
can't have both the things going on.
of course,
अगर
of course.
कुछ meeting attend करना है, you can't attend the sports day then.
Of
You
course,
have
of
to
course.
have that
And
balance.
there are
Yeah.
compromises all the time,
Yeah,
Chubby.
yeah. It's a
As much
journey.
as we want it, unfortunately, more compromises has been on the personal side.
True.
Uh,
As
you
we
know,
grow up, the
Yes, I mean
compromises
you
take
couldn't
more.
be
Yeah.
there on the sports day of your kid
Yeah.
when your kid was performing, possibly because there was an investor meeting and
Yeah.
that you couldn't avoid, beyond your control. But I believe to the extent maximizing,
Yeah. And
on that
balancing
particular
it out
component.
later. Yeah. One advice to people who have FOMO about entrepreneurship.
I think we covered it extensively,
Yeah.
but you can create an impact.
Yeah.
By all means, if you have to starting something, please go ahead and start. But do not do it just because you find others doing
Doing
it.
it. True. It's a very
And
important
while
advice.
you are at it, no one stops you from practicing entrepreneurship in your professional setup as well.
Yeah. And Shekhar, one learning, something wish you had known this earlier, or wish, I had implemented this in my life earlier, be it professional or personal, any one thing which you feel.
I think letting it go.
Yeah, this let go feeling.
I mean,
We are all learning with time, I
yeah.
think.
I mean,
Yeah.
see, the fact is, if you have been self-made,
Yeah.
uh, put in the hard work, the grit to get things done, you develop a way of life.
Yeah.
And you are also very sensitive about what happens to you, right? And when things don't happen to expectation, there is a feeling of resentment, anger, denial,
Frustration,
so many things,
everything.
multiple
Yeah.
feelings comes across in hordes. uh, to be able to take a step back, take a long breath, and think possibly there can be other angles that you're unable to see. Many people say that things happen for good. Possibly they do.
Yeah.
And we are not able to see
When we
the
look
right
back
side of
after
it.
some time, we do
Yes,
realize,
yes,
yeah.
yes. And but most of the time we end up reacting.
Yeah.
And
That's the first knee jerk
yeah,
reaction.
yeah.
Yeah.
And what I believe, Shubhi, is that when you want something to happen, it is not only you who makes things happen.
Yeah.
There are so many things, people thinking well of you, people supporting you during your journey. Uh, so many things that comes together make it happen. Why actually continue to have bad feelings or memories of bad situations that happened? If you let it go, many a times you are not forgiving the other person, you are forgiving yourself to
True. It
react,
is. Yeah. It
from
is for your
reacting in a
own peace
particular
of
manner.
mind.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So I believe, had I gotten this particular wisdom early on, possibly I'm still getting used to it, but that possibly would have been more satisfying.
Yeah.
But yes.
Beautiful. I always say we are all humans in progress. And this is one thing which I think even I am learning ki let go.
Yeah.
Learn to let go. Yeah. So, Shekhar, our today's conversation has really helped all of us to pause and reflect positively that yes, we are doing something, we are creating an impact. It is not only doing something of your own which can give you the same joy, create an impact, big, feel good about it. And that's what the whole conversation was. We are all professional entrepreneurs, and why do we forget it? Let us learn from Shekhar's insights and journey that how beautifully we can continue to make an impact while being at work. Thank you so much, Shekhar, for being here and sharing your journey. And a request to the viewers, do share it with your colleagues. They may need it. And do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel.
Thank you, Shubhi. Thank you for having me on the show.
Thank you.
And it's been a pleasure.
Yeah,
It
it
was
was a
great
very different
interacting.
perspective, Shekhar, what we discussed.
No, sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.